Someone try to keep me accountable on this because I want to read through this and get some stuff before it's time. So I know some of you've been reading, and hopefully that what I have to share today will be an encouragement. So last week we talked about we were at the Ruth chapter 1, how that Naomi's husband and sons had died, and how that Ruth and Orpah would cleave to Naomi, but then Orpah would leave. And just to recap, Ruth stayed with Naomi, pretty much disowning her own heritage, her own gods, and cleaving to the God of heaven, and which is the lesson that we wanted to bring to that. But now we're going to start in chapter 2, and verse number 1. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth, of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, Let me now go to the field, and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. That's interesting. How convenient for Ruth. Here in these first three verses, we hear that Boaz is introduced into the story. He is a kinsman of Elimelech. Who is Boaz beyond that? Well, the Bible says that he is a mighty man of wealth, wealthy man, a rich man, very generous man too. As we go down to read, what is a kinsman? That's something that gets brought up a lot, and it's really a topic I need to study on more. But what a kinsman in this case is, I just did a dictionary lookup on this one. It is one of a blood relation. It's just like Brother Paul being the son of Brother Wayne, and Kevin's Paul's brother, so they're kin. I mean, it's not rocket science, obviously, but the Bible doesn't just put the stuff out there for a reason. There is some significance to this, and we're going to find that out. We'll find that out, if not this week, next week. So in verse number 2, Ruth pretty much says that, I'm going to go out and glean in the field today. Why is she doing this? Well, if you look back in chapter 1, Naomi said that I've left full and now back empty. Naomi and Ruth are pretty poor. They're poor. They're poor folk. They really don't have any sense of income, no way to survive. So Ruth is going to go out into the fields and just harvest whatever's left over from the reapers. And what the interesting thing about that is that this is something that the Mosaic Law does for the children of Israel. You can call it like the way God takes care of the poor. We're going to turn to Leviticus chapter 19, just so we can kind of get some good context of what's going on here. Leviticus 19, verse number 9. And when ye reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather the gleanings of thy harvest. And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and stranger. I am the Lord your God. And then in chapter 23 of the same chapter, it's the same book, Leviticus 23. God repeats this to his people. Leviticus 23, verse 22. And when ye reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not make clean riddance of the corners of thy field when thou reapest. Neither shalt thou gather any gleaning of thy harvest. Thou shalt leave them unto the poor and to the stranger. I am the Lord your God. So God's got this pretty much figured out. The Lord is blessing the children. The Lord has blessed Israel. As long as they obey the Lord's commands, there's nothing that they can't accomplish. And whenever it comes to the harvest time, he doesn't want them to take it all. I mean, you look at these you look at these fields today, beans, corn, whatever you put out there. When people go out to harvest stuff, they put that in the combine, get and just clear everything out. Like it's pretty great how we as a civilization has advanced our technology that we can do that. But back during the Old Testament times, this is all done by hand. They didn't have any big machines out there that would pick up the corn, pick up the wheat, pick up all the barley or anything like that. They had guys going out there cutting it by hand to harvest it, and you could just get it all. As many people as you had, there's some parts you would miss. But God commands the children of Israel: do not cut every corner out. Do not cut off every grape from the vineyard. Leave some behind for those that can, and leave it for the strangers. Because God doesn't want us to be He doesn't want us to be stingy people. He wants us to be very loving. He wants us to show kindness to our neighbor. You all know what the golden rule is, right? Treat others as yourself. But the first and great commandment is this: thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. The second is like unto this: thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And God commands his people to leave the corners of the field for those in need. Because bad things happen. Sometimes we get into strait. Maybe there comes a time when the money's just not that good, and you need some extra help. God has provided a way for the poor to survive. Now they're not eating like kings after all this. As you read on later, Ruth kind of does get some sustenance, but it's not a feast by any means. But God has a way to provide for his people. So Ruth takes on the role of a poor person to be a stranger in this Mosaic law and go glean in the fields of whoever she can find. And verse 3 says this: that her hap was to light on part of the field belonging to Boaz. So what does hap mean? It's just by chance. Just by chance, Ruth went out to be looking. She didn't look for Boaz's field. At this point, she has no clear direction. And I'll tell you this: I'm one that identifies with Ruth in this case, because there's a lot of things she does not catch on to until much later. I feel the same way. There's so many things I don't know about, but you know what? You know who really guides us through all this? The Lord God does. What could be simple obedience to your family, to your mother, your father, or even to your spouse, could be something God has means greater for us. And I heard this thought this morning about it, and I don't want to take credit for it, but there does seem to be this there seems to be this mentality that you got to follow God's will, and you got to know what God's will is for you every aspect of your life. Like almost like there's a waypoint for me to that clock saying you got to change the clock, and God's got an arrow pointing on that. If that's God's will for me, that's fine. But you know what? God doesn't always have a little arrow pointing us where to go. Sometimes he does direct us, and his will does get accomplished. It does get accomplished. But it isn't just written in stone for us always. Sometimes we go somewhere not knowing what's in store for us, but God's got provision. And that's what he did for Ruth here in this case. So why do they mention Boaz in verse 1? Because that's where she's going in verse number 3. She happens upon the field of Boaz. Who is Boaz, by the way? A kinsman of Elimelech. How convenient. But it's a great convenience, I'll tell you that. We'll continue on our reading. Verse number 4 says, and behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and said unto the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered him, the Lord bless thee. Pretty nice guy. He's out there in the fields with his men, saying, Lord bless you. Let's get this done. And they return the favor. Verse 5. Then said Boaz unto his servant that was set over the reapers, whose damsel is this? And the servant that was set over the reapers answered and said, it is the Moabitish damsel that came back with Naomi out of the country of Moab. So Boaz doesn't quite know about this lady yet. Some people might say that Boaz is like very excited to see her whenever he said, "Whose damsel is this?" I want to be a contrarian and think, I don't get that anywhere. I'm not sure if that's just a translation, but a lot of preachers will say that once Boaz caught sight of Ruth, he's like, "Woo, who's that lady?" Oh, I have no idea. I mean, you read words and it's hard to get emotion out of it. But what is significant here and something we cannot deny is that Boaz took notice of Ruth. Whose damsel is this? And so the servant told him, "This is the lady that came back to Naomi. This is Ruth the Moabitess." And she said, "I pray you, let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves." So she came and hath continued even from the morning until now, that she tarried a little in the house. Then said Boaz unto Ruth, "Hearest thou not, my daughter? Go not to glean in another field, neither go from hence, but abide here fast by my maidens. Let thine eyes be on the field, that they do reap, and go thou after them. Have I not charged the young men that they shall not touch thee? And when thou art athirst, go unto the vessels, and drink of that which the young men have drawn." So he talks to Ruth and asks, "What's your business?" And she pretty much states, "Your man said I can come here and glean." And he says, that's fine. Stay here with us. Glean in the fields, don't go anywhere else. You can stay and glean as much as you want. I've already told my men to not harass you whenever you do this. And don't go anywhere else. You can sit here and just work along with the rest of my maidens. And then he acknowledged, and then something significant happens here because Boaz knows a lot more than what Ruth does at this point. Verse number 10, "Then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, Why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger?" She's flabbergasted. She was not expecting this kind of kindness out of a stranger. And Boaz answered and said unto her, It hath fully been showed me that all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother, and the land of thy nativity, and art come unto the people which thou knowest not heretofore. The Lord recompense thy work, and the full reward be given thee of the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings thou art come to trust. And that's something we might forget about. If you didn't read chapter 1, you wouldn't know the reason behind this kindness. Ruth has left behind that old life. She has discarded the ways of the world and cleaved unto the ways of God. She stuck with Naomi, and she told her she'd be with her to the very end. Even if they were to die, even if they were to die together, they'd be buried together. That's how close Ruth was to Naomi. She's her mother, not by blood, but it is by bond. And this tale was known. It wasn't just known to Boaz. He didn't know who the lady was until he found out that this is the lady that came back to Naomi and had left her habitation to be with God's people. And Boaz was to give her kindness, let her stay in her fields and work with her maidens. Not that she's any like any of the maidens, but she's there with them in the midst. Why is Boaz doing this? That's what Ruth was asking. Why? Why me? Why are you showing kindness to me? You can parallel this to us with God. Why does God show love to us? We don't deserve it. None of us do. Even on our best days, we're rotten sinners. Why does God show that kindness to us? The best answer I can give you, friends, is this. He loves us. Jesus died for our sin. He paid our sin debt. God loves us. He shows us kindness. And that's what Boaz did here. Verse 14, we'll continue on. And Boaz said unto her, At mealtime come thou hither, and eat of the bread, and dip thy morsel in the vinegar. And she sat beside the reapers, and he reached her parched corn, and she did eat, and was sufficed, and left. And when she was risen up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and reproach her not. Basically said, don't forbid her to pick them up. And let fall also some of the handfuls of purpose for her, and leave them that she may glean them, and rebuke her not. So not only is he telling her not to leave her alone and let her glean, he's also saying, as you go to pick this stuff up, you behind you. Let her glean from behind. Not going to know any better, right? Here, just a little bit more. Leave a little cookie, leave a little breadcrumb trail. Just give her some incentive to stay. But he goes the extra mile with her. He doesn't just let her stay. He gives extra. So the ignorant boy in me is starting to realize that I think this guy kind of likes her. If not by word, it's definitely by action. A lot of guys say that, and I'm like, I don't see it. He's being nice. But I think he's starting to show a little bit of his affection toward this lady. Verse 17. So she gleaned in the field until even, and beat out that she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Thankfully, my Bible has a measurement here of what an ephah is. It's 1.1 bushels. I'm not sure how big a bushel is. I'm not a farmer, so maybe y'all can enlighten me on that later, just how much that is. So yes, Ruth has a pretty productive day. She happens on the field of Boaz. He notices her, lets her stay, tells her to make herself right at home. Eats with them, goes out and does her work. Like she doesn't just sit down and put her feet up and say, all right, they're gonna take care of me. No, Ruth's not like that. She's got a job to do, and even though she's shown this kindness, he's not resting on her laurels and saying, you know what, that's fine, Lord's blessed me, I'm just gonna go ahead and kick back. No, he's got to take care of Naomi, her mother-in-law. So she's got to go out there and finish the work. And Boaz, I think, notices that. He notices that she is a dedicated woman. She is very loyal. She's going out to get food for themselves so that they can survive. And that does parallel with us. So sometimes we are not on the best situations, but we don't give up. Keep going on and keep working. Maybe someone can notice that kindness, and perhaps the Lord may bless at some later point. Maybe not with us, but maybe someone else can be shown that kindness as well. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but this kind of kindness that Boaz shows mimics Christ's love for us. How much did Christ love us? Romans chapter 5, verse 6 says this. For when we were yet without strength, in due time Christ died for the ungodly. Ruth was without strength. She was without hope. When she returned to Bethlehem with Naomi, she didn't know a single person there. Not a single person there would help her out, according to her. Naomi thought the same thing. But Boaz came into her life and did something she did not expect. He showed kindness to her. Just like how Christ showed kindness to us. What a marvelous God we serve. So then we'll continue on in verse number 18. And she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw that she had gleaned, and she brought forth and gave to her that she had reserved after she was sufficed. And her mother-in-law said unto her, where hast thou gleaned today? And where wroughtest thou? Blessed be he that did take knowledge of thee. And she showed her mother-in-law with whom she had wrought, and said, the man's name with whom I brought today is Boaz. Verse 20, here we go. And Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of the Lord, who hath not left off his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi said unto her, the man is near of kin unto us, one of our next kinsmen. Oh boy, this is exciting. Who's that? And Ruth the Moabitess said, he said unto me also, thou shalt keep fast by my young men until they have ended all my harvest. And Naomi said unto Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that thou go out with his maidens, and that they meet thee not in any other field. Naomi is so encouraged by this. Naomi didn't know where she went. Ruth didn't know where she was going. God knew where she was going. He may not have had a little roadmap for her to go to, but that's just God's plan. Sometimes we have to go out there and find that for ourselves. That the Lord is there. So, not to make light of any particular type of person here, but Naomi seems to be like that lady that's like, when she hears of something exciting happening, she probably knows of Boaz already. Ruth didn't, and she knows that he knows that Boaz is the next of kin to Elimelech. Maybe she was hoping that she would find Boaz, maybe. But then when she found out Ruth was there at the very same field that could benefit them the most, I can see her saying, "Praise the Lord! Blessed be Boaz to show this kind of kindness to you." And it's so good that things start to work together. Things are starting to look up for these two ladies. They've been having it rough. They're poor. They don't have a lot to their name right now. But there is some light at the end of the tunnel that they're in. So she encourages Naomi to stay with them, and she's got clear instructions here to stay with them till the end of harvest. Verse 23. So she kept fast by the maidens of Boaz to glean unto the end of barley harvest and of wheat harvest, and dwelt with her mother-in-law. So she's already got her course pretty much set. So here are the lessons we can glean from this chapter, if you catch my drift. The law of Moses is seen into effect. We notice that with harvesting. Sorry, they weren't to cut the corners of the field; they were to do that for the strangers, and that really goes into full effect right here. And this, in our Bible here, it's not just a Bible written by men just to tell us what to do. There is meaning behind everything that happens. There's a reason why God had this law passed down to the children of Israel, is for things just like this. And as Selena and Miranda were saying yesterday, point A plot A connects to plot B connects to plot C. This is all connected. It's all a big spider web of great truth. And this is just a little piece of that. It's good to see the law of Moses take into effect. We're also going to see how the other law is going to be taken into effect too, and that is of the kinsmen. If you'll oblige, let's turn back over to Leviticus chapter 25. So this can give us a little bit of an idea of how the kinsman works. And if I eat my words later on in chapters 3 and 4, then I'll eat my words. But I think this has some significance here. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 23. The land shall not be sold forever, for the land is mine, for ye are strangers and sojourners with me. And in all the land of your possession ye shall grant a redemption for the land. If thy brother be waxen poor, and hath sold away some of his possession, and if any of his kin come to redeem it, then shall he redeem that which his brother sold. And if the man have none to redeem it, and himself be able to redeem it, then let him count the years of the sale thereof, and restore the overplus under the man whom he sold it, that it may return unto his possession. But if he not be able to restore it to him, then that which is sold shall remain in the land of him that hath bought it until the year of Jubilee. And in the Jubilee it shall go out, and he shall return unto his possession. Basically saying, if a man in Israel had lost his land due to any unforeseen circumstances, and he had to sell his land, his kinsman can come in and redeem that, whatever that price may be, from the person that he sold it to. And in the year of Jubilee, from my understanding, is that every 50 years in Israel, there's a year of Jubilee, which means that every debt that the children of Israel owe is wiped clean, and all slaves that are in bondage are set free. But in the meantime, a kinsman can come and redeem that land from the kinsman that has sold it, for I believe that however many years are left of the Jubilee, until Jubilee. Verse 29, and if a man sell a dwelling house in a walled city, then he may redeem it within a whole year after it is sold. Within a full year may he redeem it. And if it be not redeemed within the space of a full year, then the house that is in the walled city shall be established forever to him that bought it throughout all his generations. It shall not go out in the Jubilee. But the houses of the villages which have no wall round about them shall be counted as the fields of the country, that they may be redeemed, and they shall all go out in the Jubilee. Notwithstanding, the cities of the Levites and the houses of the cities of their possession may the Levites redeem at any time. And if a man purchase of the Levites, then the house that was sold and the city of his possession shall go out in the year of Jubilee, for the houses of the cities of the Levites are their possession among the children of Israel. But the field of the suburbs of the cities may not be sold, for it is their perpetual possession. And if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him. Yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. Take thou no usury of him or increase, but fear thy God, that thy brother may live with thee. Thou shalt not give him thy money upon usury, nor lend him the victuals of thy victuals for increase. I am the Lord your God, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, to give you the land of Canaan, and to be your God. And if thy brother that dwelleth by thee be waxen poor, and be sold unto thee, thou shalt not compel him to serve thee as a bondservant. But as an hired servant, and as a sojourner, he shall be with thee, and shall serve thee unto the year of Jubilee. And then shall he depart from thee, both he and his children with him, and shall return unto his own family, and unto the possession of his fathers shall he return. For they are my servants, which I brought forth out of the land of Egypt, and they shall not be sold as bondmen. Thou shalt not rule over him with rigor, but shalt fear thy God. Both thy bondmen and thy bondmaids, which thou shalt have, shall be of the heathen that are round about you. Of them shall ye buy bondmen and bondmaids. Moreover, of the children of the strangers that do sojourn among you, of them shall ye buy, and their families that are with you, which they beget in your land, and they shall be your possession. And ye shall take them as an inheritance for your children after you, to inherit them for a possession. They shall be your bondmen forever. But over your brethren and the children of Israel, ye shall not rule over one another with rigor. Boaz is starting to play the role of the kinsman right here. As you see, he's not buying Ruth. He's not making her a slave. He's not making her a bondman or a bondwoman. But he is hiring her to go work in the field. And you start to see much of the application here that he's not to be ruling over her with rigor. He is to fear the Lord his God and serve him. That's kind of my idea of the kinsman, according to the law of Moses. Now, if there's more to that, I would love to hear more. But that is one lesson that we get from this. And to review, God can show kindness to us through those that we do not expect, as we saw with Boaz and Ruth. And lastly, this lesson we get from this chapter is that God does not have to give you a vision to follow his will. And I'm all over my notes here, but I'm going to tell you the story y'all know that it's a very personal story that y'all probably know of. Orville Marie, um, I believe this, and I apologize for this if it's personal, but I believe the Lord provided them some I believe it was grain or wheat. They were having somebody for special services, and there was just nothing. And then I think the train that was going through Forrestal time, I guess it something happened and it went down. I think a cart spilled over and all this wheat was just out. They didn't the people didn't know what to do with it. So I think Grandpa Orville went over and looked into the situation and said, just take as much as you want and do what you want with it after that. And I believe with that, the Lord was able to provide Orville Marie the stuff they needed to keep their guests for the week. What a marvelous God we serve! And if you don't know this, I believe that is why we call our mission work Wheatville Baptist Church to be a reminder of that story. There was no roadmap for a Granny Reed and Grandpa O to go there. That just happened by chance. That's how God works. He works in mysterious ways, and that is not an exaggeration. You could say it was by chance that Selena and I crossed paths at that singles conference in 2013. I didn't go there looking for anybody, and then she showed up, and the rest is history. The Lord is so good to us, and we're not meant to know His direct will before it happens. Just like the preachers that were being put down because they think they know God's will, and they should know God's will. And if you don't know God's will right then and there, then what you're doing is wrong. That is so far from the truth. We're not supposed to know the whole story. Yes, we know our final destination. We know how everything ends. But we don't know how our story unfolds. And we're not supposed to. If we're supposed to know that, then wherein is our faith? We don't know about tomorrow. It may bring us poverty. But the one who feeds the sparrow is the one who stands by me. Our God is so just and so great. He doesn't bore us with all the details. But our lives are just like a storybook. We don't know what each chapter holds in, but we do that God is going to get us through it somehow. There is a lesson to be had from it. And the exciting part is finding out what that is. So then there was Ruth, just happened upon the field of Boaz. What a great adventure this is going to turn out to be. Chapter 3, I will say as a preview, I find it a little weird. But just for personal reasons. Nothing wrong with the chapter at all. But there's some stuff in it I think is kind of weird, but there's some significance to it. I'm hoping to find out more about it and figure out what they're trying to do here. If you've already read the book, yeah, you probably know what's coming up. But Naomi's got a scheme going, and she's going to have Ruth follow through with it. But we'll find out about that next week. I won't spoil it all here. That's all I got for today's lesson. Lord willing, we'll be back again in 7 days. Brother Jerry, would you dismiss us?